Anyway, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Derrick Grayson, who is known as the Minister of Truth. He ran for the Senate in 2016 and 2020. He believes totally in the U.S. Constitution and supports Trump wholly. Has a low tolerance for rhinos. Amen to that. And at this time, I'm going to introduce Mr. Derrick Grayson.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This man here is a gentleman and a scholar. His reputation preceded him, and thanks to Eugene and to Mark and his lovely wife, Lori, for reaching out to me. And thank all of you for being here. And before I move any further, I want you to give yourselves a round of applause. Come on. Clap your hands for yourself. I always do that because whenever I go to speak, 90% of the time I'm preaching to the choir. Why do I say that? Because you're here. You're interested in what's going on in this country. You're involved. We have several groups of people in this country. We have one group, which is the majority of Americans. They aren't involved in politics at all. They don't vote, but they've got their hands out. They will complain. They will moan and groan. But it has always been a few people that brought about change in almost anything. Because there are just some that they just won't get it. Then on the political landscape, I have not seen this in my life, ever. Donald Trump has a vitriol against him. Just the mention of his name brings up a rage in some people. I've never seen the media as corrupt as it is. I remember when Joe Biden first ran for president, he was drummed, some of you all are as old as I am, he was drummed out of the race after they did, and I think it was CBS, after they did a rundown on how much he lied, how much he plagiarized, all of the things that he had flip-flopped on. I think they called him flip-flop Biden and bye-bye Biden. Raise your hands if you remember that, when Joe Biden ran the first time. That's when the media was honest. And they let his own words convict him. They didn't do what they do to Donald Trump today. They manufacture words, and people believe it. So you got this group of people that hate Donald Trump, and there's nothing you are ever going to do to change that. Good friend of mine, I was telling this story last night, told me, I wish, and she used some expletives, I won't use them here, I wish that so-and-so was dead. That's hate. I said, that's not very Christian of you. I say, now, I know I'm not perfect, but I wish no man dead. Not over politics anyway. So because you don't believe in what the man stands for, you hate him to the point that you wish he was dead. I've already covered the media. And then we have the final group, which is why I am speaking to you today. Because you know what? I'll go out and I'll speak, I'll preach to the choir. And when the choir goes home, they forgot the song that they learned while they were listening to me preach it. Because we don't take it past where we found it. And I know you may not believe me, but I'm going to prove it to you. I had my wife, that's Yvonne over there, pass out these cards. You look on the back of it, you'll see some numbers. Make note of the one up in the upper left-hand corner, Buddy Carter, who is going to run for U.S. Senate. But he has a 60% constitutional voting record. When I was in school, that was a failing grade. That means 40% of the time, he votes against the Constitution. Now, I think I heard Mr. Larry say I have a low tolerance for rhinos. I have zero tolerance for rhinos. And I have been screaming and railing against rhinos since 2012. Donald Trump came on the scene and he made it popular. Now, everybody has heard the term rhino. I see some people spell it R-H-I-N-O, of course, doing discredit to the actual animal itself. It is R-I-N-O, Republican in name only. When you vote against the Constitution for any bill that is deemed unconstitutional, and Mr. Bartlett, please raise your hand. I know all of y'all know him. You've known him longer than you've known me. But I sing the praises of the New American, the Freedom Index, almost daily. And I can't for the life of me understand why somebody would go and vote for Buddy Carter. Why somebody would go and vote for Drew Ferguson. Why somebody would go and vote for Austin Scott or Rick Allen. But they will. They will. They will do it. And if we don't do our part, and I know I'm doing my part, so I'm standing up here and I'm talking to you now, and I'm going to give you a little history lesson here in a little bit just to show you how they operate. If you don't do your part, go out and take it past where you found it, Donald Trump will do one term and be gone, and we will be right back where we were. We were almost on the brink of destruction. We have never come so close politically without a bullet being fired. Border wide open, the man in the White House not even running the White House. All of those things are coming out. So let me run back down memory lane as to why it is so important that we purge rhinos. When Donald Trump ran, everybody loved what Donald Trump was talking about. I know I did. Now, I admit, in the primary, I voted for Rand Paul because I'm a constitutionalist. We have two in D.C., Rand Paul and Thomas Massey. They will never vote for a bill unless it is extreme circumstances, because Rand Paul, I think, is 97%. That means 3% of the time he betrayed somebody. Thomas Massey is 99%. And would you believe it? Marjorie Taylor Greene, the person that I least expected, she is 99%. She votes with the Constitution most of the time. That is the type of representation that conservatives deserve. That is the type of representation that the country needs. Donald Trump can only do so much. So let's go back to his first term. Donald Trump run. Everybody loves what Donald Trump is talking about. We're all happy. MAGA, and I voted for him in the general election, and he won. You know, he also won that second race too. But anyway, we ain't gonna even talk about that. We had the House, we had the Senate, we had the White House. But 45 plus Republicans quit. We could have gotten anything that we wanted legislatively, but they quit, they exited, and I believe that their ticket got punched. Trey Gowdy was one of them. I used to call him Bulldog Gowdy. Never accomplished anything, never brought anybody to justice, but he talked the loudest in D.C. And when we got the president in there that we wanted, he resigns. He retires along with the rest of them. Why did they do it? To limit Donald Trump to executive orders. I never heard of so many executive orders in my life because they were mostly somewhat of a benign thing that presidents would do. But it wasn't for governing the country. We need laws. We need bills that get passed. Why? Because it's harder to repeal them once they become law. And after those 45 plus Republicans quit, I said, okay, the game is afoot. They are limiting Donald Trump to executive orders. That's exactly what happened. And as soon as Donald Trump was out of the White House, every executive order that he put in place to try and bring some good governance back, they all got overturned. William Barr had a stack of them on his desk already waiting for Joe Biden to overturn as soon as he got to the White House. And then we teetered on the cliff's edge. Opening the border was one of the worst things that could have happened. And I said, if Donald Trump does not win, he did win, but if Donald Trump does not remain in the White House, we will be in trouble. And we were in trouble. You all know it. You know I'm telling the truth. But these were our rhinos that did that to us. You think it was the Democrats. You want to blame Barack Obama as though he could do it all by himself. No, he could not. The 40% of the time when Buddy Carter and Drew Ferguson votes with Democrats, that's them helping the Barack Obamas. Now, people get mad when I bring up Bush the younger. He was just as bad. You remember TART, the bailout? And what did General Motors do after they got bailed out? Shut down dealerships all over this land and started sourcing their parts from overseas, costing more jobs. Bad policy that hurt America. But what has Trump been trying to do? Trump was wealthy. I didn't say rich. So you got to understand the difference in being rich and wealthy. Wealthy is a mindset. Trump didn't go to D.C. to get more money. Trump didn't go there to personally enrich himself. But look at all of our representatives that go into D.C. broke and end up being multimillionaires. These are our representatives in the Republican Party. So Donald Trump is trying to save the country, and then they're just sticking it to him every chance they get. Okay, all of the people that Donald Trump endorsed that turned their backs on him, can I start naming them? Mitt Romney? Yeah. He endorsed Mitt Romney. John McCain? Yep. He endorsed John McCain. He endorsed a slew of Republicans. One of these guys on here, now I'm going to let you tell me, see how much homework you've done. One of these guys on here would never admit that he supported Trump or that he was MAGA. Here's the first one I was talking about. I'll go ahead and tell you. Mr. Buddy Carter. But he's claiming that he's a Trump MAGA Republican now. Because Trump, simply put, he wins. They tried to send him to prison. They tried to kill him twice. They tried to break him financially. But he's still winning. What this man has stood up against, I sometimes say to myself, I don't think I could do it. He has a special anointing, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. We recognize that about people in the Bible that did some despicable things, because Trump is human just like everybody else, but they had a special anointing. King David. Saul used to kill Christians. Changed his name to Paul. But you know where I'm going with this. There is something different about Donald Trump. So what happens, you know what? And I made a list of some of these things. I want to see how well you are abreast of all the things that Donald Trump has done for us. And I'm going to just go down the list. I'm going to start out with Mr. Hegseth. Now, I was in the Navy. Raise your hand if you're military. Okay. When I was in the military, as far as Clinton went was don't ask, don't tell. Now, I have 2 daughters in the military. And I'm going to tell you what they got going on in the military now would just make your head spin. Thank God for Hegseth, because he reversed all of that DEI and what I call sodomitism nonsense in the military. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. That was winning. A ceasefire between Iran and Israel. That's winning. Supreme Court ends judicial coup by limiting nationwide injunctions. They were trying to bog Trump down in court. That's gone. Trump secures 5% of GDP defense spending from every NATO country that is a member nation. We've been talking about NATO, and I know Trump has been talking about NATO members weren't paying their fair share. That's a bump for us. Rwanda and the Congo have just signed a peace deal. Another war ended. When have you seen an American president giving a hoot about what goes on in any of the 54 countries in Africa? You haven't. But Donald Trump has. Trump received permission from SCOTUS to send illegals to third-party countries. He won that. They tried to shut that down. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ hit record highs. Now, understand something about the stock market. It's emotion-based. As long as Trump is winning, the stock market is going to be fine. And if you got a bunch of money in the stock market, if it drops, don't sell off. Take some Pepto-Bismol for your stomach and ride the storm. Trump emerges victorious after a Senate attempt to rein in his Iran strikes. They never did that with Obama. They didn't do that with Bush. But why Trump? See, it is all about us. Now I'm going to turn that around. Because Trump has made it about us in this country, the only way to shut us down is to shut Trump down. And we let them. The China trade deal has been signed. Several food giants have agreed to removing artificial dyes from their food products. Economic experts admit total defeat over Trump's tariffs. Now, I'm not going to get into a long thing about our economy, our monetary system, because it would take too much time, and I promise not to talk more than 30 minutes. But understand, Trump has tied his entire legacy to tariffs. He must win. And even though we have a monetary system that will implode at some point, if we don't get off of it, Trump is trying to slow that down by realizing revenues from all of these other countries that Trump has just balanced the scale with. Balanced, fair trade. Fair and balanced trade is what Trump was going after. But we don't want that. Our politicians didn't want that. Why don't they want that? Because they are there for personal enrichment. And because they are there for personal enrichment, they don't care about you. Now, I talked about it on the radio this morning, about the lies that they have told about the one big, beautiful bill. I respect Rand Paul and Thomas Massey for not voting for it, because they have been voting that conscience for at least 15, if not 20 years. Okay? So that was nothing new. Thank God for J.D. Vance breaking the tie. But they wanted that bill to die. But it didn't. So we are being given grace. We are being shown mercy. But what does that require now from you? See, Trump doing his part. He didn't quit when they tried to kill him. He didn't quit when they tried to break him financially. He didn't quit when they impeached him twice but failed to convict him in the Senate. He did not quit, not with the cases in New York, the case in Atlanta from Fonnie Willis. He did not give up. But now people are mad and belly aching because Cash Patel and Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino aren't bringing the justice fast enough for them. When are you going to learn? I'm not talking to anybody in this room. I know you're all smarter than that. When are they going to learn to stop second guessing the man and just roll with it? He hasn't let me down yet. All I see are wins. My bone is with what I call, or whom I call, rhino supporters. If you leave here today considering to vote for Buddy Carter for Senate, you didn't hear a word I said. Nothing I said made any sense to you. You're like those Democrats. Soon as you bring up the word Trump, they don't hear anything because you think your guy is not the problem. It's the other person's guy. But your guy is the one with a 60% constitutional voting record. These numbers have a meaning. And Trump is focusing on the numbers. The man knows business. So this is not about singing just Trump's praises. It's about how important it is for we the people to purge those that will betray us, that have been betraying us in the House and in the Senate. Kemp is one of the biggest enemies that the state of Georgia has got. You may not want to hear it, I'm just telling you the way it is. If you saw the nominating committee perform in Dalton, Georgia, you also know that they are not your friend, that they betrayed you. You're going to get up and nominate your guy, but you don't stop there. You decide to trash the opponent as well. I'm smart enough to read and do the research for myself. That's not your job to dictate to me or to attempt to dictate to me how I should vote. I'm giving you the information. See, I didn't just come up here and badmouth. Did I say any negative thing about Buddy Carter on a personal level? Raise your hands if you think I have. I never do that. Because all that matters is how these people vote. That is all that matters at the end of the day. And if we don't clean up the Republican Party, and if we don't get rid of the rhinos that will be coming up for election, if we don't primary them, I tell everybody that I know, don't run against a Democrat. Run against a rhino. 4 of these guys, now Buddy Carter, of course, he's not running again, but the other 3 guys at a minimum need to be primary. Let me give you their names again in case you didn't read the card. Drew Ferguson, Austin Scott, Rick Allen. They got to go. If you primary them and get them out of there, you will see a difference in the rest. You want to know why? Trump has already shown you how to do it. 10 Republicans voted to impeach him. They included Paul Ryan, among others. All 10 are now defunct. They have no political career. Trump bagged, if they ran, he bagged primary challengers. That is when you get rid of rhinos. You primary them. Get you somebody that is new to the game. Because it's hard to find somebody that's been in the game and they have been voting like these guys on here. They you don't want to go with. Now, Barry Loudermilk and Richard McCormick, they are what we called in the military salvageable. Those are the types that will go along to get along. So monkey see, monkey do. If they see other people voting with the Constitution, they will vote with them. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, she can't do it by herself. Now, I don't like some of her tactics, and I have been vocal about that. People have heard me say that. But the woman votes with the Constitution, and I cannot take that away from her. But we need 8 more people like Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House, just from Georgia alone. Amen. And with that, I'm done. If you guys got any questions, feel free.
We got a microphone. Hold on.
I'd like to make a comment. I'm very impressed by you today.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I've got a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
I want you to get on Fox and Friends.
They won't have
In the
me.
morning. Well,
They won't have me.
Buddy Carter been on it. If you could get on there and get broadcast throughout this state, there would be no question. I've been impressed by you today, and I want you find somebody that can get on there and get you on that place.
Let me explain why they won't have me. Because I talk about rhinos. The only person that has been able to talk about rhinos and get away with it is Donald Trump. And every rhino that betrayed Donald Trump, the Mitt Romneys, the McCains, Donald Trump made them pay dearly for it. They no longer have political careers. So Fox, you bring me on Fox? Man, what you talking about?
We're just gonna speak it into existence and say we won't have you on there yet, but we'll pray in.
All right. Prayer works.
President Brandon, I would like to know, are you planning to run against Warnock? Can we count on you?
If the support is there for me to run against Raphael Warnock, I will run against that. He's a charlatan, both spiritually and politically. He supports same-sex marriage, sodomitism in all its glory. He even has a tweet out there that I've saved as a record. There's more than one way to enter into heaven. And that is a lie straight from the devil's mouth. There is only one way. No man cometh unto the Father except he come through me. Now, how Warnock got that, I don't know. But you know what? People believe it. People believe it.
I want to thank you so much for coming to speak to us today. And I know there was a suggestion about Fox News, but you might have heard there's some alternative, I'll call them alternative newses, because some of us kind of passed up on Fox when we saw them call the election early. We just kind of passed them on by and moved on. Some of us did. So I was wondering, would you consider coming on, for example, the Georgia Record or Antonio Jones, some of those alternative groups?
I have been on the Underground Railroad. I've been on a number of independent radio shows, but unfortunately, and that could change with people like yourselves, because there's a gentleman who came here today, heard me on the radio this morning right down the road here. I was on that radio show this morning for about a half hour, and he stopped in. That's why I say I'm preaching to the choir, but you got to go out and you got to make noise. You can't be afraid to talk about these individuals. You need the boldness of Trump. I used to play in a band, and there's a song, it was a Jimi Hendrix tribute band, and we used to travel. This was back during the Ron Paul days. And that's where my political activism actually began. And that was a song that Jimi Hendrix did called Axis Bold as Love. And I revamped the words and I called it The Axis Bold as Paul. Ron Paul was never afraid to vote against a bad bill. Those, how many of you know Dr. Paul Brown? He voted no on all bad bills too. He was a constitutionalist as well. The sad part about constitutionalists, they accomplish very little because we are always sending colleagues that aren't worth a cuss to work with them. That's why they can't get anything done. That's why if Georgia were to get 9 constitutionalists in office, like Eugene, you over here, who won't go along to get along, who has almost ran as many times as Abe Lincoln. So you got to win and you coming somewhere. We can make the difference and do what Donald Trump is expecting us to do. But that's on us. Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, if you were elected, what steps do you think you could take to bring our judicial system in check?
So I individually cannot bring the judicial system in check. They are appointed, if you're talking about the Supreme Court, they're appointed by the president. He picks them. We should be thankful that we have the ones that we do have, because we have been winning some major cases with Trump. What I can do as a senator is use my bullhorn like Donald Trump does and shine a light. Unfortunately, with the U.S. Senate, there is no having someone removed from the bench for voting on things that aren't constitutional. However, we can get senators in there that will fight against confirming bad judicial picks. Same thing at the state and local level. Kemp was resistant. I think I mentioned Karen Handel's name earlier. Some of you, raise your hand if you remember Karen Handel, Secretary of State. Do you remember that promise she made about fixing the voting machines? Do y'all remember that? She was going to get rid of them, remember? And we elected her, right? And nothing happened. Then, after she broke that promise, they went and elected her for the 5th district. All of that is on us. And I know you guys don't vote in the 5th district. I'm speaking generally, so to speak. But we have to start speaking up and calling these people out. Or else, when Donald Trump leaves office, I don't know that J.D. Vance is going to have the stamina that Donald Trump has. I would rather take my chances on 9 constitutional conservatives going to Washington, D.C. And hopefully J.D. Vance will get up there and let Georgia be the example. And we could do this nationwide. I made a series of videos about rhinos across Georgia. No, I'm sorry, not across Georgia, across the country. Created a little playlist. But unfortunately, most people aren't interested in doing the research. I don't know why that is. But it only takes a few. Any more questions? Yes.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We heard you on the radio this morning, and we were excited to hear that you were going to be here. You mentioned a few websites that we could go on to. Where can we go to not only follow you or get to your series, but to look at some of the information so that we can be doing our own research?
So if you can remember my name, Derrick Grayson, go to google.com. I know everybody hates Google. You got to be careful because Google might tell you somebody else is Derrick Grayson, but you know me, tall, black guy, bald head, great. You will find everything out there. You'll find my Facebook page. You'll find X. You'll find my YouTube videos. I've got a slew of videos that I have made over the years chronicling this Donald Trump phenomenon. And trust me, he is phenomenal. This is a phenomenon unlike anything that we have seen in since Kennedy? Well, it was a phenomenon with Kennedy, but they killed Kennedy. Reagan, yes, since Reagan. We've not seen it. We are winning. But if we go to sleep at the wheel and continue to elect these types of individuals to represent us, We're going right back to where we were. It'll be business as usual. Trump will be gone. Nobody operates like Trump. Nobody has. But the goal is for the people to learn that the people matter, the people count. And it's all about the policies that they put in place and the laws that they pass. I don't want a president limited to executive orders anymore, because I understand the process. When I saw Donald Trump doing all of those executive orders and the 45 plus Republicans quit, I knew we were in trouble then. When Obama won, and I make mistakes, I voted for him the first time around. I sure did. When I heard a black man stand up and say, I'm running for president, I believe that when I was on the Butch and Bob show this morning, I started out making YouTube videos about the black community and how jacked up it is with single parent households, the welfare state. That's where it all started for me. And then I finally connected the dot. Oh, this is because of policies primarily coming from liberal Democrats. And that, of course, brought me into the leap of political involvement. And I heard the guy who did the devotion earlier talking about the Republican Party is the closest thing you've got to God in terms of a political party. I think it's worth cleaning up and saving, because it's the closest thing you got. On the surface, they don't tolerate or embrace the nonsense, but that's just the surface. But underneath, this is what you get, and that's what we got to clean out. Anybody else?
I'm sorry I was late to the party. Do you have any pointers or tips on how to get the African-American community more involved?
Okay, and then I think this will be, he's got his hook over here. This will be the last, the last question I'll take. I talked about this earlier. There are some people that just aren't going to get it because they don't care. They aren't involved politically. That's at the bottom of the rung. Then you have the black community that are wholesale, I won't say wholesale, 95% locked into the Democrat machine. It will be hard to break that. If you approach them to talk to them, give you an example. I sit down with a black man and I said, let me ask you a question. If it's about Trump, I say it's ain't got nothing to do with Trump. I just want to ask you a simple question. Do you think that a person ought to be allowed to come into the country illegally, take advantage of our healthcare system, our educational system, our welfare system, taxes that we pay for, our tax dollars are paying for? Do you think they ought to be able to do that? Every single one of them is going to tell you no. People ought to come into the country legally. If you ask them on a one-on-one, so you have to attack them based on sound principle, not on Trump. Can't use Trump because you're going to lose every single time. Will not win. But if you approach anybody from sound principle, if you go and look up, so Buddy Carter, this is everybody's homework. Buddy Carter is running for U.S. Senate. Go to the newamerican.com, or you can go to Google and type in Freedom Index, the Freedom Index. But if you go to the newamerican.com and look up Buddy Carter, look at how he votes when he's voting with the Democrat. Look at what he voted for and why it was against the Constitution. And then when he comes here to speak to you, because I'm sure he will make the rounds. Have a question ready for him. Why did you vote for XYZ, House Bill XYZ? It's clearly unconstitutional based on this. Can you tell us why you voted for that bill? And see what he says to you. That's how you deal with your politicians. Forget their stump speeches. Tell them no stump speeches when you come here. I don't want to hear God's guns. I don't want to hear freedom. Yes, I got my pistol. I got 2 pistols in my car. I don't need you to tell me about that. I don't need you to tell me about freedom of speech. I want to know why you voted against the Constitution, against me. See what kind of answer you get. Thank you so very much. You've been
I want to say one thing. It's not a question. It's just a comment, information. Also, Congressman Carter has joined with, and Mr. Danny's here. He's from Waycross. He can vouch for what I'm saying. But he has joined with the Democrats in Georgia to have the Okefenokee Swamp Park in Waycross, Georgia, which is 50 miles from here, to have it designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. UNESCO is the educational arm of the UN. That would put our Okefenokee Swamp under the jurisdiction of the UN, and there are people in Southeast Georgia opposing this. So not only is he voting unconstitutional, he's also pushing the UN on us in Southeast Georgia, and we are saying no. And that's all.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you brought your daughter. Thank you very much, Derrick.